We're going to go back just over 20 years ago to 2004. And there's a lot of moving parts in WWE and certainly in TNA. But as we talk about what's going on with TNA, I want to mention the Russo, because it feels like in this era, he was always in the news. But there was actually a discussion, as the story goes, that Russo was going to enter seminary school and be done with the company. He's going to leave wrestling and join seminary school. And I know he had a book that he put out around this same time, but I think this caught a lot of people off guard. Were you surprised? And what can you tell us about this decision that Russo made? Or, I mean, I don't know how far he actually got with that, but what a story this was. The guy who booked so much Crash TV, so much attitude, so much pushing the boundaries, leaving for seminary school.
So, and I always, man, from about 2003 or four till about 2000, right up to kind of this, where we're kind of planting the flag here. For lack of a better word, we'll get to the title of it somehow, some way. But we're going to kind of land the plane, if you will, on the final episode, final show done from the asylum. That's correct, right, Connie? That's kind of where we're headed. And so I don't like to ever, I'll say even discuss a man's walk, his faith walk, because you never know what goes on in somebody's head or what they're going through, but between that space between their ears or what their family's going through. There's so many things, but off and on through the years, me and Vince have had different conversations. But as far as him specifically saying, I'm going to seminary school, I never heard those words. I knew that he wanted to get out of Atlanta for quite some time. He was raising his three kids there. And bless her heart, his wife is stuck with him. No, they've been together for a long time, and she was going to support him. And they made the decision, or he made the decision, and the family followed and supported it, that he was going to Denver. As far as like you're asking, I never heard him say that. I know that his faith was in my recollection. That's why it gets a little fuzzy on the different times, because like you said, Vince was in the news, and I'm talking about TNA news. He was in the news, out of the news. He was a talent. He was creative. The situation with Hogan, the situation with my father, the situation even with me and Dixie and Dutch and everything. It was always, is he talent? Is he just going to pitch ideas? Is he a part of creative? And it really, I mean, that happened from day one until 2013. It was a ebb and flow type situation. But I hope that answers your question. It was never told to me that he was, he never told me I'm going to seminary. I knew that he wanted to go to Denver. He fell in love with the city. He's still there to this day. Born and raised on Long Island, moved to Atlanta for WCW. He really never had any roots there other than the WCW job. We all know how that went. It came and went. It came and went. Up, down, up, down, up, down. We started TNA, and now we're talking about a 2003, 2004 timeframe. He had been there 4 years, 5 years, and I knew before even the seminary discussion came up, he was ready to get out.
I think that's a story that a lot of people who follow wrestling are familiar with. There gets to be a point where guys just get burnt out. When you think about, your career and you look back, were there times that you could pinpoint and say, boy, that's when the burnout was really on me, and I too was looking for a way out? Like, I know how much of a wrestling fan, and you've even called yourself a junkie. I mean, you just can't stop consuming wrestling. And I appreciate that about you, but I'm sure there's been a point when you can look back and say, man, at that point, I'd have done anything to do something else. I was over it. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, Conrad, and that is something that, man, I could tell you a conversation I had with Keith Mitchell a few times, and Keith Wiseow, he's like I don't know, that wise uncle that I would always hang up the phone and say, man, I need to talk with him more often. That came my final days of TNA a couple of times. That happened in, oh boy, 15, because Keith came out and did the Global Force tapings in Vegas. It happened in 16 and 17. So I've had all conversations that Keith, kind of as a general rule, Conrad, I don't know if you know this or we've had this conversation. He always kind of had a marker in his mind that once a quarter, he took some type of vacation, whether it was floating the Red River, and I hope I'm not sharing too much personal stuff, but he would go snow skiing or float the Red River down in Texas, or just get away. I never took that to heart, and there's been times in my career that I wish I would have. But the first time that I can say that it really, really contributed was July of 95. From the time, started in there October of 93, and a little before that, I substituted for the King and worked some Bret Hart loops. But anyway, and then the Double J character got up and running, and I was on everything and happy too. But with my situation, just it never slowed down. And I'm not bitching, and I'm not doing the old man back in my day, but the schedule was 10 off, 10 on, 3 off, 4 on, 2 or 3 off. But Royal Rumble 95, IC champ, which meant, okay, Jeff, go do this on sale. Jeff, we need you in the office up at Titan Studios to do a couple of commercial spots or whatever it was. Conrad, so really from 93 to July of 95, there were no breaks. And especially from January of 95 to July. And that's when me and Road Dogg did our walkout, if you will. And we've covered that in a couple of times, but that wasn't the main reason. But I am certainly sure, and I was a couple of years after it. And as I sit here today, 25 years removed, Conrad, I am absolutely positive it contributed much more than I thought, that I didn't make rational decisions in a lot of ways. At TNA, there was a couple of spells that I never took time off. During Jill's sickness, I couldn't take any really time off on wearing both caps. 2011 and 12, and I know I'm getting long-winded here, Conrad, but there has been definite times where I just didn't come up for air, and to this day, I can't say that I regret it, but I've certainly changed for the better about it. Burnout will kill you, and it will make you make the most irrational decisions, candidly, that you just go, what the hell was I thinking? And as I've learned in my sobriety, you can just say you weren't thinking. That simple.